Did you look at the bow study that I forwarded?
I glanced at it, because I base that on.
That's the high end of the element.
Yeah, so I look at, so we would need 1.5 positions at Bristol Elementary School, so an average teacher is 70,000.
Yeah.
So it would be 70,000 for one teacher moving. So we currently have one teacher who's 50% grant funded, which couldn't be covered that way.
Yeah.
So we'd have $50,000 to spend somewhere else, I suppose you could say, in grant money. But we would, making that person full-time would probably be about 40,000 would be a guess. We'd have to put back in, so this budget includes cutting the New Hampton kindergarten teacher half-time, so increasing that back, so say that's another 40,000.
So it's over 200 anyway.
Yeah, probably some busing costs, perhaps,
Right.
just knowing that bus increases, we may need to add another bus or something. I'd have to look at those.
Why would we add another bus?
Well, just because your ridership is likely going to go up.
I don't ever see a bus full of kids in this.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, is I have to look, and again, so some of that is really, I'm just giving a good estimate, but
Yeah.
just, I will tell you, if you bring it, they will come.
Yeah.
And so
Well, you're
you will increase ridership on buses.
The last meeting, the lady that spoke says, I know at least 20 families to New Hampton that would be, unless you don't believe that.
So, I mean, the other piece is we may want to do a parent survey to find out what that number really looks like, because, I mean, we may project, say, 10 students in New Hampton, that's why we're cutting down, but there may be 20 students out there, which may necessitate 2 kindergarten classes, you know what I mean? So we may, as part of this process, want to try to get some family surveys done, to just try to get a good number, a handle on how many kindergartners would actually show up.
I think there are people in New Hampton whose kids will never go to kindergarten there. That's what I think. There are people who certainly would, because if it was all day, then they could manage better. But I think there were some that never would. But what do we know about what's coming into Bristol next year? Because that's the place where we would need the other 1.5. So their numbers have been going down too.
Bristol's been Bristol has been fairly steady in the sense of we've needed 2 consistent class. Their numbers are high enough that you've always needed 2 consistent classrooms.
And that's 3 sections.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have through Title I, for Title I students, some of those students stay that other half of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some minimal costs, and we would need more furniture, kind of stuff like that.
Where would we put them?
So, I mean, I have to look at that. So in some buildings, like Bristol, you probably have space. But then again, if we move 6th grade down, some of those buildings then become even tighter.
Well, I'm just wondering, because kindergarten rooms are bigger, and, so we've got 2 rooms there.
I have to really look at it.
Okay, yeah.
It's not so, yeah, I haven't quite gotten that far.
I'm just,
The other, so like, for example, in Bridgewater, we haven't reduced that position, because I think we're at like 17 or 18 students. I think it's at 18 maybe in Bridgewater, kindergarten 17. And so again, if you go full day, are 10 more students gonna come because they're not coming right now, because it's half day? Does that necessitate us to go to 2 classrooms? So I think we really wanna do our research on it. Again, to me, I wouldn't have brought it up if I didn't think it was the greatest right now when we look at our schedule, we do half an hour of math in the morning, like that's just not enough time to get math into students. But there is potential significant consequences of not really thinking it out and making sure we have it well planned.
I mean, the study you sent out, these like second to last slide, gives you 8 or 9 different things that you do in preparation that you definitely don't want to make random, because you're, especially in buildings that you're hitting your capacity marks already. If you do hit these, you're talking capital problems and all of that. So there's a lot of issues that need to be addressed, which was mentioned thoroughly in that presentation.
Ann Houghton had a question, I think.
I just wanted a comment about the iPads for special ed. Although they're not supported by IT, they're supported by IEPs. So students have an increasing need for access to assistive technology. So I've just joined the technology committee, and there may be an alternative device, but the need for technology is there, so.
Yeah, and it's misleading too to say they're not part of the tech plan for that, but that's, and when we say not supported, it might be that it's more the device. So the need for the applications that Ann's talking about is definitely there from IEPs. Whether we use an iPad or another kind of device is that delivers that is what we'll work through. But they're not part of the tech plan either, so.
Okay, Vincent, Paul?
Yeah. So that $10,000 item's been clarified. The $200,000 item or more that I'm talking about that adds value to student outcome, I think we agree is a good idea. Might necessitate making the big sacrifice that we've started to talk about in some form. I don't know exactly what form that might take, but if we need to cut it at 1.1 million, maybe an easier way to do that would be to cut the overhead associated with operating excess capacity, and then allow us with less to do more. Now, I don't know which building that would be, but we deliberately stayed away from resolving the middle school issue when we directed you to come up with a plan to K through 6, which I'd like now to call capital K through 6, for lack of a better term. But I throw that out as a 100,000-foot pot in getting us down to where we need to be with adding kindergarten. Some flexibility on planned revenues, some flexibility on the retained fund balance.
What do we have the 110,000 from the facilities maintenance trust in this year's budget for? And what is there available in that fund, if anything?
I think you've been putting about 60,000 into it. I think there might be as much as 60,000 available because you'll probably transfer again in this budget. Again, the thing is, the 60,000 is usually a warrant article, I believe.
So
right?
so
it'll come out of surplus. I'm not sure you'll have that amount available next year. To answer the first question, 110,000 is available now in this year's budget to transfer in, and it's specifically for that conversion of the oil tanks, which we are required to do. You're not touching that.
And if I recall, that 110 almost cleared out the account.
Correct.
But then we just put 60,000 in, right?
Yes.
So there could be
potentially. I think there will be around 60,000 for next year in that account.
So I have a question along with that, unless you have another? Okay, so there's a potential perhaps to use that for the middle school roof. What about the benches at the high school? Are they dangerous or just not that great?
They're just not great.
Yeah.
I mean, they're dangerous, I suppose, if you sat on them. Because you can't really sit on them.
The one on the right is particularly slanted.
Some of them are getting to the potential where they may tip over.
Yeah.
If you look at them, they are sitting on angles like this.
So they're dangerous in the sense that
granite.
somebody tried to sit on them, they couldn't.
Yeah.
But I think people, that some of them avoid them now, just because.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good STEM project for the students.
I think they
They have
just
to
need
pour concrete, I think.
Yeah, that's what the project is, that's why it's expensive. We thought it was just pulling them up because they sit on sand, they're sinking in, so you need to put slabs underneath them, is really what it is, it's the slabs.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of these are catch-up items. I'd like to see us catch up on a few of these. We've already got the whole, can we do K to 6 and how much will that cost? I think that we can't.
I don't think you have that cost yet.
No, you don't.
You don't?
You don't have that.
No, so, and also, and I think that I think that we can't have kindergarten is coming, I mean, in this budget process right here. I think maybe we have to take care of some of these things first. We're not gonna be able to take care of all of them. I think it's a little too soon. I think thinking about full-day kindergarten, that's okay, as long as we still have a half-day available. But I think that it's too short a time period to have this in this budget.
I disagree.
I actually disagree too, because the Bridgewater Hebron teacher is already full-time. The New Hampton teacher right now is full-time, and it would just involve restoring that position to full-time. The Danvers kindergarten teacher is already full-time. That's why I asked about Bristol and possible incoming numbers. Like, maybe it could be done and just not done there, but then if the numbers come in low, then it could be structured so there's one full-time and, one full-day, one half-day there.
I'm thinking we may be looking for extra classrooms to do K-6. That may be a problem. So now if you're looking for extra classrooms for another full-day kindergarten, for another section, you can't, if you have two sections in one school,
Yeah.
now each of them is gonna need a classroom if they're both full-day.
Right.
So that's another thing. So it just compounds it.
That's certainly a legitimate inquiry, which is why I asked if, at some point, if we could formalize this, to direct the superintendent to come back and say, here's what it would take to add kindergarten.
Yeah.
Capital K, if you will.
Well, it's going to be on our November agenda, so that would be when she...
So we really don't need to formalize that by vote. Touch your mark to the chair.
Oh, in November, then, are you planning to have something?
I have it on the
for that?
agenda.
Yeah, yes, not just a discussion, but you'll also tell us.
Oh, no, I wasn't planning that.
You have 4
That's what
surveys
he's
that
asking.
will be going
Yeah.
out this week, and
Yeah.
So, I think, you have to start somewhere. My biggest concern is what are the actual numbers? Because you have several programs that are at cap, kind of at max now, so your Bristol program, your Bridgewater program, clearly right now your Danbury program, your kindergarten program. So I guess I would say that the first place to start would be trying to get a survey out to parents to try to identify how many kids are out there, because the last thing I would want to do is plan for this and then all of a sudden next year find out we need 3 more teachers.
Middle school, a giant kindergarten.
On top of the additional ones we just put in the budget, you know what I mean? I don't have any idea of what that looks like right now.
Well, along those
Giant
lines,
kindergarten.
I'm asking the chair if you want to take an action on this by vote to direct the superintendent to do this.
Yes, but a survey?
Well, no, I think I could share with you that if you want to do something with some validity to it, I'd defer to whatever your thought process would be on that, assuming that the rest of the board goes along with the idea. I don't know that the rest of the board is in agreement or not.
That's why it's on the November agenda, for us to discuss it, but...
Okay, but the point is, it's got to be part of the budget for us to do it next year if we all agree that student outcomes are what's more important, and a lot of the catch-up stuff for $1.1 million. For a couple $100,000, I'd like to improve student outcomes, whatever it takes. And I would suggest to the superintendent that you err on the high side, because I did an informal thing on Facebook, and I got 10% of the people on the United Parents group to
Yeah.
respond.
That's what I'm saying, is I think there's probably lots of kids out there who would not normally come if it was half day,
Yeah.
but will if it's full day.
Right, and yet there's a chunk out there that say that they advocate the half-day program, which is why I'm suggesting that we do a capital K,
Yeah.
full times 4, and a small K.
And so, again, those are things you have to think about. So what does that look like for a half day if it's in one building? are we providing transportation from all 7 communities to that school for half-day? That's gonna be busing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think there's this is not a one-meeting decision, this is a lot of planning that, I mean, normally school districts will go into this, you know, a 2-year process of trying, you know, to formulate it, to
Yeah,
plan
we
it.
don't need another study.
We have
This is
to,
a
you know,
no-brainer.
but no, but I'm talking, you have to decide curriculum, what does a full day look like for a kid? This isn't something you just throw a kindergartner into a classroom and decide this is what it looks like.
I concur. I agree.
Jeff?
Mike, there are provisions and percentages for exceeding the tax cap. Can you explain how that works and what would need to happen?
So I talked to the attorney, today to ask her that specific, I had 2 questions for her. One was, what does that look like to kind of go over the tax cap? The board and the budget committee cannot do that. The only way that the tax cap can be overridden is by a vote. It's not a vote of overriding the tax cap, it is just a vote at deliberative session to increase the budget. So at the deliberative session, the body can vote to go over the tax cap.
By how much?
Whatever you want, yeah, but there's a 10% rule that you can't, nobody at deliberative session can go up or down more than 10% of the budget. The other question I had was, because we still need to develop the default budget, can the default budget be over the tax cap? And she said absolutely. The default budget is just the default budget. If it's over the tax cap, that doesn't count either.
What?
There's also
Say again?
provisions too.
The default budget, so you calculate the default budget.
Yeah.
It is that calculation of, what, you know, current year's budget plus or minus one-time expenditures and contractual obligations. That number can be over the tax cap.
So then there was validity in my question that our default budget could perhaps exceed the tax cap. While our proposed budget is less than
This year's budget.
this year's budget
Correct.
and not meet the tax cap.
Okay. Anyone else?
So that, just looking over these, I'm just thinking of wants versus needs. And, you know, I definitely think we need to pass the teacher's contract. And would I absolutely love and need to see the kindergarten going full-time? Absolutely. I'm a little concerned about cutting the computer aspect of things right now because of the future of where education is going. And what the kids are going to have to do in regards to the Smarter Balance assessment and all of that. So just put a little being on it in regards to that.
Well, we can also go through and come up with our own for next time.
I was gonna say, I would encourage you to do that, because there may be things that, you know, ooh, I don't think we really need this, or you might have questions if there's other things you want me to research, like, do we have too many English teachers, I don't know, whatever it is. Send me an email, I'll research it for the next meeting. But
And our
staffing
list
wise, we're down.
This is not a recommendation list. We tried to isolate the things that really stood out of this budget that were very different and not part of a tax plan or not, you know, it's not a recommendation list.
Anything
In
else?
no particular order, other than the first 2.
Are we just on this, or are we going to revisit the discussion at all?
The kindergarten discussion is on our agenda for November. If you
Well, I
want to
do-
talk about it now, you
I
can.
think there's at least a question that has to be asked, and is it, I don't disagree that the best way to do this is far more logically than the way we did the support services. You know, that contract, the salary issues for the support staff this year of, I don't know, 200,000 or 100,000, which is what we did, and then realized that that's not the real number. So how do we get around that? We're gonna have a survey and this and that, the other thing. But we got an email today that said that the initial budget hearing is going to be in January. I mean, is it realistic to have numbers and information to move forward with full-day kindergarten for next year, for 15-16?
So the reality is, you have your budget, your next meeting, you're projected to finalize your budget, and then you're done with the budget, it goes to the budget committee.
Yeah, except that my earlier remarks preface the fact that we should take as long as it takes us to get through this budget to do so properly. And then I added that we should do capital K in 4 locations.
And is it due to them by December 1st?
Well, it's due to them whenever they
When
get
we
it.
get it.
Okay.
But they have to have time again to work on it as well. So, I mean, the budget hearing has been scheduled. I mean, some of those are by law, by regular, I mean, the budget hearing has to be within a certain time period.
Yeah.
And that backs off of the deliberative session, so,
And the deliberative session is January 31st.
correct, right. So some of, so those back off. So you have to get the budget at some point to the budget committee so that they have ample time to review it and do the same process you're doing.
Right.
I would also say that the budget committee, as it's now existing, overall is a very cooperative bunch and might be good to bring in and involve in discussions with different things. I'm disappointed that none of them are here tonight.
Sharon is here.
Sharon's
Oh.
here.
When did you show up? I didn't see.
Yes.
The subtle color.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed you. I think that giving them time to work and treating them fair as well will help the process. I think it should be a cooperative effort.
We've done
When you're
that,
running.
we've done that in the past. We've had Saturday joint meetings. So my point is that whatever it takes. Which is kind of why I was coming back to, should we get a sense of the board on this kindergarten thing, or is it just going to be a separate issue in November and then we just may or may not add it to the budget? I'm talking about adding it to the budget. That was my request.
I'm also worried about cutting that position because I'm afraid of not getting it back.
The kindergarten to
Yeah.
halftime.
Which was my thought at the last meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeff?
I'll say, so there's no question, I support full-day kindergarten. I have some ideas about how that should happen, as opposed to full-day, half-day, different locations. I think that full-day should be offered at every school, with a half-day option in the morning for parents who can pick up their kids midday and say, well, full-day isn't appropriate, I'll take them a half-day. That solves the offering half-day here, full-day there dilemma. It's what the parent chooses at every location. I'm concerned about how we're going to pay for it. If I have to choose between a phone system and full-day kindergarten, I'm going to choose full-day kindergarten. That's kind of where I stand though.
Well, I support it. We support it. Sue wants at least one half-day, correct?
Yes, I'd like to have half-day be accessible. Now, I wouldn't mind the way Jeff has suggested it, if that works. But I think that it can't be done for next year.
Could I, Madam Chair, ask my fellow member why?
Well, I'd really rather see it done well, with enough time to plan it. I feel like if you try to rush it, it's not going to be done as well.
I think we have a more than competent superintendent that could get that done for us very quickly, and we certainly don't need another study.
I'm super.
So going back to your presentation, are you getting family involvement? Are you fully evaluating the resources, available resources? You looking K-4 and beyond for curriculum instruction, assessment implications?
Yeah, hold on.
This is from the doctor that did the study that you gave to us.
I understand this, the work's been done. The no-brainer is that student outcomes are improved with capital K full-day kindergarten.
So the work has been done, you think, in your community, your community,
No,
to
I
make
didn't
this
say that.
decision?
Okay.
I just
So
said that, and I shouldn't be having this debate with you because you're not a member of the board.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to have a debate, I'm asking a simple question for us who are doing,
Yeah, I don't
or
think you're doing
coming
that.
up with this.
So I think, can
We're
I
gonna stop that line?
And I mean, if the board is really, and I guess I would have concerns, particularly looking at K to 6, so perhaps the board wants to try to package those two together for a review in April. What does K look like, full day, what does sixth grade? Because they're both gonna intertwine and impact each other in our buildings.
Yes, and the K through 6 model would perform better overall if we started with a great foundation, which is
Right,
what
but-
full-day kindergarten would be. And I think that's more important, frankly, than whatever you come up with for a plan for 2 years from now. So I think it's something we should do right away.
But the K to
but-
6 is for the year after, that the
Correct.
study would be, for so they would be together.
Because one's gonna impact space-wise on the other.
Right,
I don't disagree.
right.
You may conclude that we need all 6 buildings as a result.
Maybe we need a 7.
Oh, boy.
Throw that out, Joe.
Yeah, it's a good thing you said
I
that.
keep sense of humor.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if Hill would have wanted to join the district and become part of the formula that the rest of us pay the overhead on, and we could pick up their building as well.
They already have full day K.
They have full day kindergarten.
There you go.
Yeah.
They're already built for us.
Okay, and Beth?
So why don't I stir the pot a little more?
I know.
You had talked about our need to expand the preschool program, and that isn't reflected in the budget.
Yes, it
That
is.
is,
Oh, it is,
that
actually.
is in the budget.
Okay. I had a concern there. It was brought up to me that we have community members in the business of providing preschool. If we go into competition with them, we are going to have a negative impact on their livelihood. So, my thought was, perhaps we should approach it from a direction of a partnership with an already existing community preschool to provide content, instruction, services and so forth to...
That's one of the options in Ann's request at the back of this, where she outlines the cost of adding another preschool, and she also gives the cost of sending people out to daycare centers and preschools. So if you look at that, you'll see the difference between the two. The thing I didn't see was, because I looked at that too, benefits aren't in the request, so then you have to add benefits to it too. And she compares providing in-home services or in daycare services or whatever with housing ourselves.
Misinterpreted that when I read it, I guess.
Yeah, because we would have to provide all this, we'd have to have a special ed teacher go there, speech OT, all the
Right.
services would have to travel out.
I read it as
Yeah.
entirely an in-home service.
Either way, we'd have to still provide those same services.
Did I see that some of that was in the budget for New Hampton? No.
For preschool,
Yeah.
there was another preschool teacher added, I think for Bristol is where we're planning to put it. Yes. Is the building that has the space.
That is one of the things I questioned, but I figured I didn't need to question it tonight until we saw this, only because if they're in their daycare, that is less restrictive than making them come to a school that may not be central to them. I understand the, visits, but
It's, according to restrictive, as long as it's a program where there are typically developing students and students with disabilities, it's not considered
right,
more restrictive to come because it's located within a public school.
right. But we wouldn't be able to have it at all of them, so then, yeah. You want to stir the pot? You want to?
Are we still talking about kindergarten or preschool?
You can, if you,
Can I ask Teresa a question?
Sure.
Is that possible? Can I have maybe input from you with the curriculum in regards to a full day kindergarten?
I'm glad you asked.
Be happy.
With the Common Core, currently, just talking with the kindergarten teachers, maybe getting 30 minutes of math a day. And when we go implement Common Core next year, 30 minutes is not going to get it. They are not spending enough time in social studies and science, and in a couple of years, we're going to be moving to next generation, so that we have, the STEM initiatives rolling here. So a full day will get us on the right track, if possible, for next year, because we're going to implement Common Core Math next year at the elementary level. The year after that will be English Language Arts, the year after will be the Next Generation Science, and then Social Studies. So understanding that we have a full day, because we have a lot of things to teach, but then making the connection and really giving them enough time instead of throwing things at them and just saying, oh, you're going to spend 5 minutes here and this. It's not going to give them the foundation that they need. And first grade, again, between kindergarten and first, when they shift their thinking for place value, is huge. If they don't get it in kindergarten, they're going to be behind in the middle of first grade.
It kind of seems like kindergarten is becoming the new first grade.
It is.
Oh,
I
it's
mean,
a long time ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why they're
So-
5 again in school.
Yeah. And I noticed on the schedule, on the materials that Vincent sent, on the schedule for full-day kindergarten, really is not enough time for physical activity. So here we go again. That's got to be different. It was under an hour altogether, counting the recess and the lunch. And it
For the
was
full day,
maybe
you're saying?
for the full day. Yeah. So that's something to look at if it, it comes about.
And that continues to be a challenge, so even
Yeah.
now with half a day, kindergartners get art, music, and gym. So, I mean, that is something, if we didn't go through next year, we would, not that I want to cut it out, but at some point, you gain 35 to 45 minutes of academic time. Kids can still go home in the afternoon and play recess. If that is something that we've talked, is, I've talked to the administrators about is, okay, if this doesn't happen, what are some alternatives to increasing academic time, Does the student, a good kindergarten teacher can integrate music in their day, not having to have us integrated during the day and then have an additional 35 minutes of music. So, because it is a concern, we need to up the ante for our kindergartners, as much as I hate to say that.
I was gonna say, poor
the
kids,
expectations are out there.
Well, it has to be, I think.
But it has to be thoughtful and done in the right way.
I would say more of an exploring curriculum. They're not just sitting at a desk doing this
Right.
pencil paper task.
Exactly.
Getting it
They
pointed.
have to problem solve and explore and sort of learn to do things. So, and that includes movement as well.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Okay, anybody else
Thank
on
you,
this? Because
Teresa.
I think we're maybe ready to move on. But I don't want to rush you. Okay.
It's a challenging conversation.
Yep. So the next item on the agenda is just an update on the RSA 195 Bridgewater Human Withdrawal Study. And as I think you're all aware, but I just want to say we sent in the letter at the beginning of this week with the report stating that they found that although it was feasible, it was not suitable at this time because it would have a negative impact on the instructional model that they have that's working so well out there if they should have the reduced student population as a result of leaving. Meaning if they didn't have the Alexandria and Groton kids, then they wouldn't be able to offer all that they are currently offering, or not in the model that they're currently offering it. One side effect that came out of the withdrawal study that I thought was awesome was we had this great dialogue started that we had to kill because it wasn't on our agenda. And that great dialogue was between the selectmen from all the towns as well as the board, and it was so nice to have open discussion, except I had to say it's not on our agenda, so we really can't do much and deprive the public of the right to hear it. So I understand that the selectmen will all be getting together and starting to have some of that inter-town dialogue, which is very positive. And I'd like to talk more about that next time, about us maybe hosting them a couple times a year so that we can have conversations with them about, developing our communities and developing our district, not just educationally, but economic development and what the plans are.
That first meeting is November 19th in Bridgewater.
November 19th, okay. Thank you.
6:30.
Is that right?
6:30.
At the school?
No, the town hall.
Town hall.
And I think Dawn said that we had some meeting, but that might be a committee meeting that night, I'm not sure. I didn't know. Yeah.
It's a budget committee meeting?
Is it? Yeah, I wasn't sure. He said he thought that date sounded like a date that something was going on. Well, I was going to welcome Ally, but she's gone home. She had emailed me and said, is this a meeting I should be at? I said, you know, it might be important. You might have some input on this budget, but probably not. Not this first time around. Okay, anything else on the Bridgewater Hebron study from any of you?
Just a comment. It was clear that part of the reason for the decision to agree, I think in the majority, that it was feasible but not suitable, had to do with the vote of the board to go K through 6 2 years from now. And so that's an important supposition, I think.
Yeah, that was made clear that if that doesn't happen, probably be going through the study again. And that was actually stated at the meeting. I didn't want to go negative here. Okay, at this point then, is there public comment on agenda items only? Should be enough. Yep.
Sharon Nelson, Groton. I react to Vinnie's statement, and I heard him before say there was no downsides to a full-day kindergarten. And I think there are some downsides. Academic families or families that are eager to educate their children at home from birth on say that when their children get to kindergarten, it's difficult for their child to be doing 1 and 1 or 2 when the kid's already doing maybe 2 times 3 is 6, so that kind of thing. But also socially, the impact of little kids who come with their uniqueness into a group that has, by the very fact that it's a group, there's peer pressure. And parents are distressed that little Susie is no longer the same little Susie. She wants to be like Mary and Kate kind of thing. So I think it's good that you want to keep at least one half-day kindergarten, because in a half-day kindergarten I always thought was a great transition from freedom and playing with and learning with a group of maybe 2 or 3 in your house and maybe 5 in your neighborhood. It was a great transition to then be ready for a larger group in school. So that's my feeling, Vinnie, and I'm sticking to it.
Anyone else?
Heather Gosling, Bristol. I agree that half-day, I'm not a fan of full-day kindergarten, but if you were to do it, I think Sue was right, you should wait and implement it when you're going to do your 6th grade in the elementary schools and just implement it all together. I'm also really disturbed that you're not listening to the community members about shutting down the middle school. I find there's many indirect ways that you're trying to keep shutting it down and that you're just not going to stop till it happens. That's it. Thanks. Sorry, I'm writing. Some of the record comments. Okay, anyone else? Okay.
We have action items by the board on here in case we were to have come to some conclusions. And that's why this wasn't a planning and dialogue meeting, so that if we were to make any motions, we could. So, are there any motions that anyone would like to make? Yes?
I think it would be appropriate for us at this point to consider this. So I'd like to suggest or move that we direct Superintendent Buckley to cost a plan for implementation of full-day kindergarten at all elementary schools with an option for a half-day in some form as deemed appropriate by the superintendent for implementation as part of the 2015-16 school year.
So you're asking her to have the numbers for us for next time?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there a second?
Did you say plan or study?
He didn't say either, he said, well, he did, he said cost of plan.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. So come with the cost next time. Yeah,
I'll second that.
okay, second by Christine. Any discussion? Okay. I think it should be part of the budget discussion, so. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, that's Sue opposed. Any abstentions? Okay,
So just for clarification, it will be based on
5-1.
what we know now.
Right. And what else are you gonna base it on?
Yep.
Without doing your,
Well,
without
yeah,
doing a parent survey?
Complete.
It will be, yeah, it will be completely incomplete.
Well, Stacy, if I may, I'd like to defer to give you the most flexibility possible, and if you deem it appropriate to get a survey of parents, I'd like you to suggest including that.
Yeah, I mean, I view that as an option to be able to do this. I just, in 2 weeks, you can't do that.
Well,
Right.
not the survey,
Right,
but
but to come up with numbers, you need the survey to try to get, I guess for me, to try to get a good number
I think
of
you
who
should-
would enroll.
yeah, I think you
I mean,
should.
I can get you any numbers based on current what we have. So I know I have 17 kindergartens in Bridgewater. We'll estimate that we're gonna have 17 next year, one classroom.
Yeah.
What I don't have is, maybe there's 30 Bridgewater kids who will actually be there,
Well,
which you won't be able to take into
I
account.
submit to you, and we've had this discussion in the past, I do things best case, worst case, so you fall in the middle somewhere. And I think if you decided what best case would be, or worst case, however
Okay,
you
I
want
mean,
to
I can
term it.
certainly base it on the fact that we can expect in Bridgewater, I mean, if the board is okay, worst case, if you expect, if we have 17 kids in Bridgewater, we can expect we're gonna have probably 25 or 30, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
we're gonna have those numbers, and need 2 teachers.
And I think you should.
So in each school, probably
Worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario would be in the
Yeah.
classroom.
I think it would be fair to estimate for a full class in each school, knowing that some schools will be higher than others.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, that I can do, because it's not gonna obviously be accurate, so it's
Yeah.
gonna be a.
Are there numbers, either by the state or say policy for kindergarten in the classroom, how many kids in the classroom?
It is.
Isn't it a square footage?
20. No, it is, I think it is 20, no more than 20.
And there's also
I think our
square
policy
footage.
may be,
So if your room doesn't have enough
Policy's-
square feet, you can't use another room.
Yeah.
Always bring in modules.
Yes, at a cost.
Bridgewater has enough.
Okay.
Yeah,
It was built, it was built.
some spaces have
With
room,
both of them, but it was only supposed to be a kindergarten, and then first and so on, but there were 2, so they both meet that requirement.
Okay, we don't actually have other on this agenda because it was going to be a single subject meeting, which, with just the budget, and we just added the RSA 195 report because it was so timely. It had just happened last week. So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Well, can I just ask
Yes,
a question?
you can.
I mean, as far as placing something on, I realize we have a full phone, but a discussion item for the next agenda, would that not be another item on the other item?
You just have to ask me to ask Stacy, but you can say it right now.
Yeah, well, I think I will, just because it worked well to get the word out there last time
Okay.
when Jeff made a motion. I mean, I'm not really looking to make a motion, I would like to have some time set aside to discuss the need for, I hate to say it, Mrs. Gosling's not gonna be happy, but,
Move it out of the way. No.
is, I think there needs to be a committee that looks at how to incorporate 7th and 8th grade, whether it be through building or whatever, into the current high school facility. And I think that if that's the outcome that we get to, then establishing a committee that looks at that and addresses all the concerns is going to be important. And I think it has to be part of the discussion prior to getting some of that K through 6 information. So I would like some time in the next meeting to discuss that, you know.
Okay, so we'll
I
put
guess
it on
that's as
the
far as I'm
agenda.
going.
Okay, Stacy?
What would you like it called? 7th and 8th?
Yes.
Training.
Okay, 7 and 8.
Oh, well, that's fine.
What is happening on the
Also,
19th?
in the next meeting,
Junior high school.
just a heads up, we are going to have a significant number of policies coming forward for a first read.
You're fired.
I did the agenda. We're on 2 pages. We're on the bottom of 2nd page.
Most of the policies coming forward just have changes to legal references. The policies themselves don't have many changes, and if they do, it's a title change or a punctuation correction or something.
So maybe you could separate, or
Well-
Stacy could separate those that have substance and those that are,
Well, they'll all be very clearly provided in the
Yeah.
packet. What I'm asking is that everybody go through them and be ready to buzz right through them, so we don't have to, spend a lot of time on them, because there are a lot.
Yeah.
And, I mean, most of them are very clearly just legislative changes, and we can provide the cross-out and everything, so everybody can see that, this is all that's changed.
anyone else? Okay, do you have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
9:10, motion to adjourn by...
Artificial intelligence.
Second by Christine. Okay, all those in favor say aye.